Millions of Americans wonder what the future has in store. We take a look at the key points in election history. WIFR reporter Sydney Stoffragan talks with a political expert who says a shift in power can change the course of American politics.
A lot of people thinking maybe I better vote this time.
235 years ago, we elected our first commander-in-chief. That's 60 elections. But Rockford University professor Bob Evans says the values of the American people remain the same. In fact, a recent Wallet Hub survey shows 81% of registered voters put the economy as the top issue.
Economics is almost always near the top of voter concerns, but what sometimes is the case is that crime will be an issue. Right now, immigration is an issue.
Women first voted in 1920, but even with that right, fewer than 45% of female voters turned out that year. Flash forward to 2020, nearly 90% of women cast a ballot. Carol Bailey with the League of Women Voters says they finally realized the power of their voice.
Whenever you have a woman running for president, as we do now, with Kamala Harris, of course the gender issues are going to rear their ugly head again.
Throughout history, only 5 candidates have won the popular vote but lost the election, including Hillary Clinton in 2016. Evans says that's common in close races, but that might not be the case this year.
It's probable that whoever wins the popular vote will win the electoral vote, just because of where the votes are in these so-called battleground states.
In Rockford, Sydney Stoffragan, WIFR News.
4 election days with the presidential race on the ballot ended with no clear winner that night. That includes the race between George Bush and Al Gore in 2000. That one took more than a month to decide. Evans expects the official winner not to be announced until Saturday the 9th.